All right, everybody. Welcome aboard to today's coaching call. Really excited to be with everybody today. Today is going to be a nice special call. I've got an incredible author in, actually one of my heroes in today, Mr. David Jenyns, all the way from Australia. So we're going to bring him on in just a minute. Guys, we're going to toggle up our kind of time. Usually what we do, we like to kick it off with some wins, but we've got David here for an hour. So we're going to dive in with David. We're going to let him pack his bags and see him on his way. And then I'll close up with you guys. We'll do a little bit of Q&A just to close up the call here, but want to give a warm welcome to everybody. Thank you guys for just rolling with the time today. David's on Australia time, so we wanted to accommodate his schedule. And David, before I bring you on, there's a lot of Davids going on, so I'll just kind of explain to give context. I'm Dave Mormon. I started Home Service Business Coach. So we equip home service business owners, the painters, pressure washers, window cleaners, landscapers are all on this call and in this program. So through my program, we teach system building and how to more automate our business so we can have our business, serve us, as a lot of small businesses, like you talk about in your book, kind of do the opposite. So we'll dive into that. But I want to give a thank you to the other David Leary on this call, who's in Australia. And David read your book, David, and he said, we got to get this guy on. And the two of us cooked up a plan to get you on to speak to our group today. So here we are. Guys, go ahead in the chat and give a warm welcome to our honored guest today, David Jenyns. David, how are you doing today, my friend?
Fantastic. It's a pleasure to be here. And thanks for making the adjustments time zone wise. You guys are my first thing for the day, so I'm excited to dive in and give you as much as we can in the hour we've got together.
Yeah, man, I'm so excited. So let's dive in, everybody. David, I'd love to kick it off and just hear a bit of an introduction of yourself. You've written an incredible book called Systemology back in 2020. I've read that. I love it. And what I kind of tell David, and maybe this is right or wrong, but I'm a big fan of Michael Gerber's book, The E-Myth, and I almost feel like Systemology is kind of a 2.0 of, like, if you read The E-Myth, you get some of the concepts, but Systemology is kind of your how-to, almost Bible, how to systematize. So go ahead and tell us a bit about yourself and a bit about the book, and then we'll kind of dive in and go from there.
Yeah, perfect. So I have been involved in lots of businesses, but I've started, systemized, scaled, and got 3 businesses under management that we ended up selling. So I've kind of gone through this process a few times now. And the last business I was in was the digital agency. And I worked in that business for 13 years. And some of my previous businesses, we deployed systems and processes in those businesses. So I kind of already knew a bit about systems, but for some reason, when I got to the digital agency, I thought this business was different, because the digital agency, things were moving quickly. And why would I want to put a system in place if very quickly they would get out of date? And I thought, we're a creative digital agency. If I put systems in place, I'm going to take away some of that creativity. And I thought I was the guy. Like, in that particular business, I learned how to do a lot of the online marketing, what we were doing on YouTube and SEO and AdWords. I knew everything. So from day one, I kind of started training up the staff and the clients to come to me when they had an issue. And I got stuck in that business. And I'd probably say it's probably stuck in it about 10 years too long, just thinking, this business is different. I've tried systems, we've made it work elsewhere, but it won't work this time round. Yeah. And I had all of these baggage that I was kind of carrying around. And then when we found out we were pregnant, I retested a lot of those assumptions and then found out they were just things that I'd kind of made up, or I just thought were true. But when I tested it, it wasn't true. And that's really what led to me stepping out of the day-to-day operations of Melbourne SEO at the time, and really kind of paved the way for the work that I do with Systemology, which, in hindsight, just like Dave said, I too read the E-Myth, loved it, got the big aha moment reading the book, but then I was kind of left a little bit with, oh, what now? How do I do this? What comes first? How do I prioritize it? How do I get my team on board? And I felt there's a real hole in the market for that. And then I kind of just wrote the book that I wish I had when I was kind of going through that process. And that's really what Systemology is about. And it really connected with the market when it came out a couple of years ago. And we've just had some tremendous growth off the back of that.
Yeah, it's incredible. And guys, I know we've got some readers, some fans of Systemology, but if you've not checked it out, you definitely want to get David's book. I think, David, to give you credit, man, like in the book, you have outlined it. I've not personally seen someone make, like, generally business owners think systems is a big, scary, word we want to avoid. And I think you've done such a great job of making things extremely simple in that book, because especially in our niche, man, we're busy guys and girls, entrepreneurs, we're running around. And, I was kind of listening to your book a couple of weeks ago, and you had a part where it's like, you described SOPs in kind of a joking way, right? There's Roman numerals and there's all this word. And it's like, no one ever actually reads that. And so that's why I wanted to get you on and really dig into your brain of like how we can actually make this simple for the busy entrepreneurs. So that was kind of the why behind reaching out and then just getting you on in front of everybody. I thought would make an incredible call today.
Definitely. And it's those preconceived notions about what a system is that a lot of business owners and probably hear today. Sometimes when I say systems or SOPs, a picture will pop into the head of the business owner of what they think they are. And oftentimes that picture comes from comparing to big companies like McDonald's or Subway or Amazon or Google, these big multinational corporates that have built up systems and processes. And then they might get the insight or see one of those systems and they think that's what a system is. But that's what a system might look like if you're a big multinational company who's got loads of employees and staff and you've been working at this for the last 20 years. But it's also not how you get started. And that's a big thing that we need to try and break the picture in the head of the business owner of what a system is. A system could be something as simple as getting out your iPhone and recording the way that you equip a truck before you go out on a job. And it might be a 10-minute video of you just walking through saying, oh, yep, I make sure I've got the extra cement here and I get the extra paintbrushes here. And then I make sure everything's clean. And I do all of that before I go out and meet with the client. So that way I've got everything that I need. And that could be a simple system. It starts off as a video recording. And then over time, maybe that evolves into a simple checklist. And it's really just about building a collection of these systems that are essential, repeatable, and delegatable. What are the essential things that happen in your business that happen on most of the jobs and happen consistently? What are repeatable, as in they happen more than once? And what is delegatable? Something maybe that, you get an apprentice on board or, an intern who can come on board and could maybe take over small chunks of that, which then help to free up more senior team members.
Yeah, it's so good. Like, I'll kind of tell you, David, the problem plaguing our industry and home services is we got a lot of guys and girls that are kind of stuck in this $100,000, $200,000 revenue range where exactly what you said, like, Zach or AJ or David really is the business. And in Canada here, we call it a key man operation, which is like, if David got hit by a bus, Jet Wash Solutions would no longer exist type of thing. So I guess my question is, why do you think we avoid the system building as business owners? Because you told in your book, it was like almost a light bulb moment where your wife came to you and said, we're pregnant. And you're like, that's amazing. But I also need to figure out how to go about and build systems. So I think you're a good walking testament of like, you worked so hard in your business and built it up, but it wasn't able to run without you until that light bulb moment. So my question is like, why do you think we avoid doing the system building work? Because we all avoid it.
There's 2 or 3 reasons. One is business owners are really busy. And so are your best team members as well. There's just so much to do. And then it becomes a matter of prioritization. And the payoff for systems isn't always immediate. In fact, typically there's a long lag time till you get that payoff, because systems, they end up having this compound effect. You save a little bit of time here, you become a little bit more efficient there, and over time, these systems add up. And there's a point you reach, which is the tipping point. It's kind of like that inflection point when all of your good work for creating systems actually pays off. But in the early days, oftentimes you'll make a system and you'll go, it just would have been quicker to do it myself. Or I tried to delegate this over to another team member and they stuffed it up and then I had to fix it anyway. So what's the point? And that, because there's not that immediate payoff, oftentimes then it's something that's overlooked. So that's like a few of the reasons. Some of the other reasons sometimes are oftentimes the founder is not a systems person, because what ends up happening is the founder, they're a quick thinker, they're a problem solver. They just go to wherever the fire is or whatever needs their attention and they solve the problem. And that's all about, quick fix, make it all happen. Whereas systems, when you think about it, it's more of an investment into an asset that will pay off down the line. And sometimes, when you're right in the thick of it, you just can't see that far down the line and you're just thinking about your next job. So that sometimes that's another reason why it kind of gets delayed. And I mean, the dirty little secret of Systemology is I don't really like writing processes. Like I'm the systems guy. I've written a book, but I don't like documenting. Like I don't find that fun, enjoyable. It's not my thing. But what I fell in love with is what the systems can bring. So I thought about, well, how can I solve this problem where I'm not the person who's doing the documentation? And how do I make this easy? Because I know they're important, but if it was left to me to sit there and write out all of the processes and, big long Roman numerals things with screenshots and whatever, it's never going to get done. So I kind of needed to hack it to find, well, what's the easier way to do this, or at least start the process.
Yeah. Didn't you say in your book too, I think it was you said you started a podcast so you could bring on guests to learn how to can you talk about that? Because I thought that's like, we talk about a lot in this program too. We call it from Dan Sullivan, going who, not how, which is like, don't try and figure it out. Just find the expert and get them to do it. And so can you talk about yourself admittedly not loving sitting down hearing systems? That's very relieving for us all to hear. So how did you kind of go about getting out of your business and making this happen then?
And there's probably two pieces to that. I think everybody in your community is in a really lucky spot, because most of the problems that you're solving in business, especially since you're all in the same space, someone else has solved that problem before. So who knows? Maybe this is something that Dave can help to continue to build up the culture and ethos within the community here to solve. Like, every problem in business is a systems problem. And if everybody started working on the systems, like, you might be able to share collaboratively amongst yourselves. Like, you're all at some point going to need to hire staff. So you're going to need a recruitment system. You're going to need some sort of onboarding system. Maybe you need some lead generation systems or a sales system, or the way that you answer the phone, or the way that you fill up a truck. So you're all kind of working on the same problems. And oftentimes, good, well thought out systems can be very transferable from one business to the next. So creating that and then sharing it amongst yourselves and seeing that as almost like a starting point could be really, really helpful for everybody here as a group. So from when I was kind of getting started, and I'm thinking about the podcast that Dave was referencing, again, I realized that most of my business problems someone else had solved before. So it's that Dan Sullivan, finding out who, and then I had a podcast, and it's still around, Business Processes Simplified. And what I would do is I would interview someone and get them to share a system that they're using that solves a problem that I had. And I had to have them walk through step by step how they were doing it. And then I took those recordings and I had an assistant based out of the Philippines. And I said, listen to this and just pull out the key steps. And then that just became a starting point for me when it comes to creating systems. So that can help solve if you've got very specific problems. And there's a couple of other steps, as you go through the Systemology process, some ways that we help to prioritize and answer that question. Well, if I am going to create systems, which systems do I create first? That's kind of oftentimes one of the first questions that pops up when the business owner goes, you know what, I am going to create systems. Okay, well, where do I start?
Yeah, so good. I think you'll be pleased to know too, David, we're taking a page out of your book, and we have what's called a master systems library here at HSBC, which is we keep documents under different categories, right? So for example, operations will have, recruiting, job advertisements, position agreements, training program, because I've had now 2 painting businesses, a washing business, Christmas light business. Now I have a coaching business. It's like every subsequent business you do, it just becomes more fun because I've been training my brain for systems. And I tell our team and I tell everyone in this community, like if you have to do it more than once, we should probably make a system around. For example, a couple of years ago, one of my technicians backed in our site, our crew vehicle to client vehicle. He was very sad about it. We paid out of pocket and it was all fine. But, do I have to go and make an SOP around don't back up into the customer's truck? Like probably not. Maybe we get better mirrors or something. So, we talk about there'll still be those freak one-off things that come up in business. But a lot of people on this call, you're going to be receiving 1,000 phone calls this year or the next 2 years for your services. Why would you not have an inbound call script that you follow to collect basic data from our prospects that call in? So just wanted to make mention of our systems library.
Yeah, and you touched on some real key things there. Firstly, as the business owner starts this process, you start to realize that just because you don't systemize something doesn't mean it's going to magically stop happening inside your business. So you don't need to systemize everything from day one. Just as Dave said, you pick out those essential things that happen on a repeating basis that you want to have done to a certain standard. Like this is applying the rule of 80-20. What are the 20% of the systems that have the biggest impact on your business? They impact 80% and start there first. The other thing to think about from what Dave said there is first capture, we call it the most probable. You don't need to create a system that handles every single variation. What happens if the client calls up and they say, I need it in blue and I need it in red and I need it in yellow. And before you know it, you've got a system that handles every possible scenario. What you actually do is you capture what is the most likely outcome and what is the most probable. Capture that first. And what that ends up doing is when you do get a new team member on who can take over certain tasks, they learn on the most vanilla stuff. They learn on the things that are the easiest. And any time that something happens off track or doesn't fall into a system, they just elevate it to a more senior team member. So that's when you have the discussion. The aim of the game for you guys, especially if you've just got small teams, is you want to get off your plate the really basic stuff where you're not adding much value, where you've said the same thing 50 million times and it's the same thing every time. How about you codify that piece so that way over time you start solving higher and higher quality problems as opposed to solving the same problems over and over and over.
Yeah, so good. So going granular, David, like most people on this call are going to be working, I'll average it out to 50 hours a week. Okay. Maybe working 6 days a week, 8-10-hour days is not uncommon on this call. What would you say is a barometer for time we should actually be working on systems? Would 5 hours be adequate? Is 10, even getting back to your story of you were running a successful company. how did, because I think really our ultimate system as entrepreneurs is, where does the entrepreneur's time go? How do we invest it? So what would be kind of a good baby step to say, I'm already working full tilt. How many hours should I maybe be allocating to the system building?
So to start with, the biggest thing I try and help business owners do is move from 0 to 1, as in you haven't really got any systems muscles yet. So imagine that, having systems thinking is a muscle, and a lot of business owners, they haven't yet gone to the gym to work that muscle. So we try and think about what is the lightest, easiest, best way to get started. And I would just even start off even less than thinking about, rather than even thinking about committing time, just build up the habit of recording yourself doing things in the moment. No matter how rough it is, no matter how bad it is, record it thinking that no one's ever going to see this, and I'm going to put it in the rubbish bin and no one's going to see it. But just get in the habit of recording, hey, I'm loading up the truck here. If you've got an apprentice, have him stand behind you with his iPhone and just record you doing it. You're doing it anyway, so you might as well record it happening in the moment. Just talk through it out loud as you're doing it. Oh, yes, I'm grabbing the drill now. Oh, yes, I'm putting this in now. Cool. It might be a 30-minute, really ugly, bad video, but every time you first make a system, that's the worst it's ever going to be. So consider this version number 1. And over time, you might just build up a collection of 50 videos of you doing different things in the business. Yeah. And then when your new apprentice comes on board, what do they do on day number 1 or before they even start? You email them the link and say, hey, I want you to work through these videos, and I want you to watch a video or 2 a day. And let's get through them before you come on day number 1. Yeah. Now they've learned 80% or, 30%, 50% of what they need to know before they even get on the job. And then it's much easier. Like now they're starting to ask higher quality questions rather than, where do you store the paintbrushes? Yeah. So think about it, about how do we make this as easy as possible for you? And how do we make sure that it just happens and you don't build up this thing in your head like, I got to carve out 5 extra hours a day or a week, and you go, wow, I'm already working 70 hours a week. Where am I going to find another 5 hours? That just sounds painful. So just start off by just adding it into what you're already doing.
So good. So we're already doing for 50 hours a week. Rather than add more hours to that, just add in some design work and some almost documenting, just filming with a camera of those 50 hours. And what we did, David, actually, when I first read the E-Myth before your book came out, is we just started a channel actually on YouTube and called it Revive, my company name. And we didn't publish them because they were like Bush League rinky dink videos, right? But I would just make them, rather than public, made them unlisted. And we still have this channel to this day. And sometimes when I need some encouragement, it's like, I'll go and watch those videos from years ago and see, they're not Hollywood productions, but that's how I was able to get off the truck and hire the first few team members. So it's like, I think we probably make systemizing and creating processes honestly more complicated than it needs to. And it's like, I think you said in your book too, David, it's like, there's literally like 10 to 15 like main big systems we need to dial in, and the rest will come in time. But I think we compare ourselves to the Apples and Teslas and Coca-Colas that would have rooms full of processes that we just need to go 0 to 1, like you said.
Yeah. And we just want to get you in the gym and lifting some really small weights first, because building a systems driven company doesn't happen by accident. It's a decision that you need to make. It takes consistent application, and you have to do it over a sustained period of time, and you never reach done. You won't. It's like business. There's never a point where you go, and I'm done. Like, you see, it's a cultural change. And what happens is you start off with you, and you make this change in you first. And then any new team member that comes on board, as you start to grow, every new team member comes on board and just goes, this is how we do things here. Because from day one, they were shared a bunch of videos. From day one, they followed a couple of checklists, and that's all they ever know. What normally happens with a lot of small business is they start and it's an unorganized mess. New team members come on board and then they go, oh, this is how it is here. It's an unorganized mess and it's all dependent on one or two key people. And when I have problems, I go to John and he answers my questions. Whereas, what we're trying to do is build up this culture of have a crack at answering your own questions. You've got a place where you can, a knowledge source. And I see this huge in the trades businesses where a new apprentice comes on board. They'll get the baptism of fire and they'll get trained up over a period of time, usually very short. The apprentice or the trainee will get shown something and they'll think in their head, well, I've been shown that, I should know how to do that. And then next time that they do it, they don't want to ask any questions because they feel embarrassed, because they feel like, oh, I should know how to do that. And then they make a mistake. Whereas if you had a knowledge base or something in the privacy of their own home or on their phone or whatever, if they felt like, oh, I don't remember how that's done, they could watch a little video and then get up to speed. And oftentimes a lot of apprentices, they get dropped in the deep end. They think they need to know everything and then they don't ask the right questions and then they make mistakes. And then the business owner goes, why did I even bother? Getting apprentices are rubbish. They can't do anything. And even, though we pay them hardly anything, I spend more time fixing their work than them actually adding any value. And that's a really common situation inside the trades-based business.
Exactly. And that's exactly what we see in these Facebook groups, David. Why would I hire employees? They just complicate my life. And I say, you hire team members or employees to make your life easier as the business owner. And I think it's always us looking in the mirror. It's no fault other than our own that our team members fumbled it, because it usually ties back to a business owner trying to be a firefighter in their own business. And it's almost an epidemic, to be honest. I'd say it happens 90% of the time plus is what I tend to see in this industry.
Yeah. It's and it's funny. The more I look into different industries, the more I start to realize how similar business is across the board. Like this problem, while there's little differences in this space, businesses of the same size are facing the same problems in other industries. Like a lot of small business builds themselves up to be key person dependent. Sometimes it's the business owner that's key person dependent. Sometimes it's the accounts person and you rely on Jenny. And if Jenny doesn't come into work next week, we don't issue out invoices and we need a scramble to figure out who's going to be paying wages. Yeah. And that's really common at this level. And as we kind of start to grow through that, it's about capturing those essential, repeatable, delegatable tasks, making sure that over time we build in some redundancy and we have someone else who can step in and take over those tasks. And then that doesn't mean, if Jenny goes away sick, that when she comes back, she doesn't have a truckload of things she needs to catch up on. But it does mean that at least everybody gets paid. And at least those invoices get done and the wages are done. Those things that must happen, otherwise the business grinds to a halt, they get done. And then over time, you slowly, the quality of the problem that the business owner starts to solve gets higher and higher. In the early days, this is whack-a-mole. And you're just putting out, problem here, problem there, But over time, this builds an asset that builds up. And then slowly you start solving higher and higher quality problems. You then start to think about, how do I manage expectations with clients? How do I engineer that into the system where we're reporting through to the client that a project takes this long and you'll hear from us here, here, and here. And that's, sets the expectations so you don't have that client who's on the phone to you every second day going, where's my job? I'm expected to do the job. We spoke last week. I sent in, payment. Why haven't you started the project yet? When that could be solved from a system of properly communicating with the client. And now, again, you slowly start level up, and it's about leveling up through systems.
Yeah, so good. One of my initial mistakes back when I had my painting business was a system we created, and I didn't really know it at the time. was in painting. When you get a contract to paint someone's home, typically they think you're going to paint the house, all the doors, the shed, everything possible, right? And so we ended up creating an exclusion clause in our terms and conditions to say, included in your quote is this, this, and this, and excluded are these 5 things, because there was conflict more often than not on the site of missed expectations. We thought you were painting that shed, but we didn't quote for it. And so you kind of like see these things that are a pain in the rear end with your business. And like, that's where I would start. You know, if someone, what system should we start? Like, I would say fix the problems that you're having today. And exactly what David said, there'll be bigger, meatier, juicier problems as your business expands and your team grows. Because I think that's one thing we can agree on in business, exactly what David said. You're never done, and there are problems to solve. It's just how you go about solving them. You usually have a team by then, and then you start fixing systems and not, you know, stressing out about the specific problem. It's just a higher way of thinking, I think.
I would love it if in the chat, everybody can post in, like if I say to you, what is the biggest problem that you're having in your company right now? What is it? Let's type it in. Is it leads? Is it sales? Is it doing the work? Is it like, is it cash flow? Like, so we've got a couple here, lead flow, marketing. So both of them around lead generation. Yep. So we can see some consistency here around lead generation. People following up with missed calls. Great. So you can already now, as you start to train your brain, and then we realize every problem in business is a systems related problem. Then we start to go, well, how do we solve this problem with a system? So if we looked at, let's say, lead flow, marketing, and lead, because there are a few that came in right off the bat for them. Mm-hmm. If we dug into Dane's business, Wes's business, and we asked the question, well, what recurring marketing activities are you doing day in and day out to get the awareness out, to build regular lead flow coming in? There's probably not going to be that much that's going on. They're probably relying on referral business, or occasionally they run a Facebook ad or whatever it might be. The thing for you to now do is think, right, and this is where you can leverage off the community here. Well, what are the people in the group that don't have a lead flow problem doing? And find out, hey, there's 2 or 3 things that they do. Okay, they run targeted Facebook ads to a specific group, and they say, you know, need your house painted? ? Click here. Or maybe they find out houses that recently sold in their area, and they're sending postcards to those houses. And they're saying, hey, just moved in, need a new paint job, whatever it is. There's probably a handful, and I bet Dave's already identified them anyway. There's probably 2 or 3 repeatable lead generation methods that work in most markets. It's a matter of identifying just 1 or 2 of those. And then I bet for the people that have the lead flow issues, it's about how do we install those systems, and how do we make sure that they happen consistently, whether you're doing them or not? Because sometimes you'll get a job, right? And you're painting a house and you're busy and you're thinking, right, I'm fine. I'm just thinking about getting this work done and doing, you know, the best possible job I can for the client. And you don't think about the next job often until you complete that job. But at that point, it's too late. You finished the job. You really should have got the next job ready to go. And you don't, otherwise it's feast or famine. You're doing a job, you get the job done. Now you're marketing, trying to get the next job. Marketing is a function that should be happening 24/7. And it's putting people into your pipeline so that when you end a job, then you've already got people ready to go that you can reach out to or make an offer to, or that you've already queued up ready for work. Mm-hmm. So that's an example of every problem is a systems problem. And if lead flow is your problem, then the problem you need to focus on is thinking about, well, what are 1 or 2 consistent lead generation systems that I can get, and try and get them to a point where they run 24/7, regardless of whether you're painting or not. And the same could be said with every other problem that's popped up in here, like, following up with missed calls. Well, that's an easy one. Well, we think about creating a system that when the call comes in, we have a process for, well, generally speaking, what do you say when you follow up on that missed call? Maybe this is not the best use of your time. Maybe you follow up one of these missed calls, you record yourself calling the person. So, maybe you just do it internally. You put them on speakerphone. You get, your wife or your friend or your apprentice to record you as you call them. Hey, just wanted to follow up. Had a missed call from you. Just wanted to double check what that's about. It's John from Joe's Painting Service. And, just thought I'd touch base. What is it that I can help with? Maybe that becomes a 2 or 3 bullet point script. And then, great, we've recorded it. Now that becomes a little video. Now, if you're not following up the missed calls anyway, maybe you do give that to your apprentice. And you say at the end of the day, you go through my phone and we look at the 5 missed calls and I want you to follow this script and I want you to call everybody. Mm-hmm. And again, because missed calls, for example, could be low-hanging fruit. Like that could be people calling up for work. So there's probably a handful of things there. We could go through each. Every problem in business is a systems problem. And how do we simply capture what you're currently doing or what is a simple way of solving that problem and then capturing that, and that becomes version number 1.
So good. David, you're talking. I'm like, you know what we should do? I should be buying 20 GoPros for everybody and we should be strapping it on all the owners' heads so we can it sounds crazy, but it's like, your business is already perfectly systematized to what it is today. It just happens to all live in your noggin here. And also, unfortunately, in our industry, David, I'm not sure what you see, but most business owners are stuck doing the $20 to $25 an hour tasks. And it's such a shame that I think we sometimes try to hoard all the control and we think, if it's meant to be, it's up to me, like we have to do it. But what we're learning with my team for my home service business, for example, the lead gen I'll talk to, we started enrolling all of our technicians and making marketing a full team effort. And so every job we do, we drop off 5 to 10 flyers to the neighbors of the job we do. System 2, sign goes on the yard every job that we do. Right now, we're in Christmas light season. And David, you like this. Number 3, we communicate in Slack internally as a team. We made a channel that is #leads. And I just checked it before this call. We got another lead in from one of our technicians who's putting up Christmas lights. Neighbor came up, and in that message in Slack, we have the name, the address, picture of a house. Then our office can take it and provide a quote. So it's kind of exactly what you're saying. Like, just keep things deadly simple, but look like internally, even if you have one technician and you want to fix a lead flow problem, let's get the technician helping with that so it doesn't all just sit on our shoulders.
I love how simple that was. And I'll give you another, maybe, sometimes I can't help myself. That's what business owners do. They kind of try and think, what would the next level be? Imagine getting a bunch of little postcards written up that look like they're in handwriting. Or maybe it is in handwriting that says, hey, I just put up Jenny's lights 3 doors down. And just in case you wanted a hand putting your lights up, here's my number. And then you go around and 20 houses around the house of Jenny's house, you slide that card under their front door. Like, and that could be such an easy thing for an apprentice to do and to run around. And what a great way to generate leads that's not too far off what you're already doing. Is kind of almost like referral-based marketing. I think something like that would be incredibly easy to install. And I know it feels challenging when you're in the moment. It's easy to come up with these ideas, and there's going to be a truckload of ideas. It always comes down to implementation. The implementation is the hardest bit. So we just have to think about how do we start building up this muscle for you? How do we capture, before we come up with brand new ideas, because I can come up with new ideas as every business owner can until the cows come home. First, capture what you're currently doing that is already working. Always start there first. Don't bring in new ideas. There are certain things that are happening inside your business that already work. make it repeatable, and make it happen without you. That is probably the biggest bit of insight and lesson I can give you, because what most people do is they try and create things the way that they'd like to be. But a lot of big businesses, how they've managed to scale is that they're doing what works consistently. Most small business struggles with repeatability. Your goal here is to solve the repeatability problem. Yeah. If you can solve the repeatability problem, you set a tremendous foundation to step up from.
Yeah, so good. So find what's working in your business and build a system around that. So for example, if you're out pressure washing and you get a lot of jobs from walk-ups coming up and you give them a business card, let's go get more business cards made that maybe have a general business card you could pass off to your technician when you're maybe not there. Or bonus points, how about we do this? We pay our technician $10 for every lead that they end up capturing. When that lead closes, they get a 5% commission. So it's like, you want your people cleaning, painting, putting Christmas lights, whatever, but you want to find a way you can stack some money onto their paycheck. So it's like, that's working for us. Let's make a system around it.
I love that. So if you as the technician find that you get walk-ups and you're giving out business cards and it's working, but maybe there's times when, you know, it's you and someone else and you go out for lunch and the other person stays on the job and they keep on doing it. Someone might walk up to them and ask, but because you're out to lunch, they don't know to give them out a business card, or they don't know where the business cards are stored. And they say, I'll come back later when John's back. Yep, he can look after you. So you know that method works when you're there. So that's, you create a little system around, hey, this is the way that we give out cards that when walk-ups come, and then you make sure that it's stored in the van and it's obvious and it's easy for someone to grab a card and make it easy for them because you know that's already working. So start there. Capture what's already working and make it repeatable.
Yeah, it's so good. One point, I know we got about 15 minutes, David. I got a couple more questions. We'll be respectful of your time. You mentioned the fact that sometimes the business owner themselves is a poor selection to be like what we call the systems champion. And what I find most members in our program, if you're good at building systems, you kind of have this like administrative gene that you actually enjoy clicking and scheduling and answering emails. And I have a bit of that gene myself, but most people on this call would say, I would rather not sit on a computer and schedule and build systems. Who could I enroll with that? I'm seeing Leslie on the call. There's a few of office managers on the call. So can you talk to like a system around building a system that maybe doesn't fully fall on the crazy 100-mile-an-hour entrepreneur? Can you kind of talk through what that might look like?
Yeah. So there's definitely a couple of things that you can do for that. I'll give you an example. Actually, two things come to mind. One is it's very common in the trades-based space that your team, if you've got a tradie, they might not be very techie and they don't want to hop in and navigate around things and tick things off. And, maybe they're adverse to technology. I do see that in the trades-based stuff. It's happening less and less because, everybody's so comfortable with phones these days. But one thing that popped into my head, we worked with a company called Portavac, and they basically clean roofing gutters. They do commercial and residential roofing gutter cleaning. And he had a bunch of tradies that kind of fell into that space. And over time, now his team's grown. So I'll circle back around to the how do you get started. But as they've grown, he did one or two things that I thought was really quite smart. Firstly, if a technician called in and they were having troubles on something, at head office, he had someone who was more admin based, and he would take the query that would come in from the technician. He would grab the link to the system or the video, and then he would text it back to the technician. So the technician might call up and say, hey, I'm having trouble getting the generator started on the back of the car. And then he would say, oh, great, give me a second. And he would just shoot him a text with a link to the system. That kind of helped to overcome that. The other thing they started doing was QR codes. So they ended up on their phone making little systems and linking them to a QR code, which is really quite easy to do. And basically, he would put little QR codes across the truck and across equipment and a bunch of different locations. So basically, when the techie or the technician in the moment was doing the thing, if they had a particular question, they scanned the QR code on the product or the item, and then it would take them to the section or the systems or the processes to help solve that problem. So I thought, again, this is kind of something to work towards over time. But if we go back to David's first question, which is around like, how do we do this and how do we get started? Another example I had, and it's not exactly in the trades-based stuff, but I think you can take the lesson. I worked with a guy who's actually a coach for videographers. So he would train videographers how to become better videographers, basically. And when he got started, it was just him. He was the coach, and he was so busy because he was coaching everybody else. And we went through this process where he started off making little videos of him doing the task. He actually did that about over a 6-month period. So he'd record himself answering the incoming phone call. He recorded himself, he actually, for part of his marketing, used to do some LinkedIn marketing. So he recorded himself with his list building and connecting with people and sending them a welcome message and all that. Basically, he just made, for 6 months, he made lots of little videos, just like Dave was talking about, stored it in a central location. After he got to that point, the next step was he hired a virtual assistant. So he found he happened to go for a Philippines-based assistant. I mean, you could get one locally. If you're in the States, maybe it's a return to work mum or dad who's working from home, who, is happy to compromise on their hourly rate because they want to work from home and they want to have flexibility. So you find the return to work mum or dad or the Philippines-based assistant, someone who's, cost effective for you. And you basically say, great, I want you to start watching these videos and I want you to create me just little basic checklists. Watch the video and create bullet point checklists. Now, Den, the guy I'm telling you about who went through this process, after he did that, after about 3 months, he first got the assistant, they were doing like 10 to 15 hours a week. After a few months, the assistant had started to stick their hand up and say, oh, that's easy, I can do that. Oh, that LinkedIn thing, I could do that. Like they watched the video, created the system, and then they said, oh, I can do that. And then Den said, okay, well, you start taking over this. And before he knew it, the assistant just started taking more and more off his plate. So all of his marketing functions, and I know quite a few people were talking about that earlier, lead flow and stuff, it was a challenge for them. The assistant took all of that off Den's plate. And then now they were consistently connecting with people on LinkedIn, sending out the welcome message. He had a podcast and the assistant ended up booking guests on his podcast and lining up the show. And all Den would do would rock up, record the podcast, and then the assistant would do all of the booking, get all of the editing done, and then upload it into LinkedIn. And he basically removed that whole chunk of marketing from his plate because he didn't have enough time, and sometimes he was doing it and sometimes he wasn't, but we know it has to be consistent 24/7. And then that assistant started doing it, and before he knew it, he had more leads than he could handle. So then he had to change his business model. Now, if you were in that situation, you might get another subby on, or you get another, team member who can kind of take over. What he ended up doing for his business, he ended up evolving his business from one-on-one coaching to group coaching because he had more leads than he could handle. He couldn't work with everybody one-on-one. So he raised his one-on-one prices and introduced a new lower cost group program. But it's this kind of evolution that you go through. And that first step comes from you recording everything, getting it centrally stored, then bringing on a low cost assistant who can watch it and then start to take tasks off your plate. Those essential, repeatable, delegatable tasks. And before you know it, you then start to solve a different problem. Now, to burst everybody's bubble here, you never get to the point where you don't have problems in business. Like, as a business owner, your game is problem solving. But the game should be don't solve the same problem again and again and again. The game should be solve solving higher quality problem, higher quality problem, higher quality problem. And that's what this process will enable you to do as you start to delegate down these, tasks through to lower cost, less skilled team members through your systems.
Yeah. So good, David. I'm glad Chemo asked if we're recording this. We're recording this because we'll review this as a group because it's incredible. It comes down to the ladder of leverage, and you get paid for the size of problems that you can solve, right? So if you guys are on site solving a problem of a plug downspout, maybe you get paid a couple $100. The second ladder up is your team does it. The next ladder up is your manager runs that team. And the third ladder is you multiple franchise your business where you've got multiple owners now solving those problems. So, that's just kind of what we're talking about here. David, I got two more questions. One's on kind of the personal front. I'm just curious because you're the systems guy. Does this flow into your personal life as well? You systematize these businesses. So at home, what I found, at least for myself, it's like there's a system where the keys go, where the dog leash goes, what day we clip her nails on. This, maybe I'm too robotic, but it's like almost like I've changed how I think. So I'm curious, do you find a translation into the personal life as well, that you're thinking systems all the time, or does it kind of stay in business?
There's definitely a bit. I have married someone who she's the systems person, like in our family. If we got her on the call here, and she was talking, it's funny. She would say to me sometimes, if I don't put the keys back in the same place, she's like, how can you be teaching all of these business owners about systems when you're so not systemized at home sometimes? And she finds that quite hilarious. But what she doesn't know is I'm the visionary creative and she's the systems person. So the key is actually to find the yin to your yang. You do it in business. You find, I'm the visionary creative, but when I've hired my CEO now in Systemology, she brings that other chunk that I'm not as good with. And similarly, whether I did it consciously or subconsciously, I did it at home as well. I ended up finding my wife, who she creates a checklist for Christmas. We're hosting Christmas this year, and, it comes around every 4 years. And then she's got, 2 months out, she's planning for, oh yes, I'm going to have to start thinking about this and ordering that and getting everything into place. So she's infinitely more systemized than I am.
Yeah, it's so good. I think you almost marry your opposite, and personally, and then also in business, you need to kind of marry your, every visionary needs their integrator, right? And so I think a part of being self-reflective and aware is looking in the mirror and saying, are you more visionary, or are you more ducks in the row, like to know what's happening, love planning? Because you need to have one of each on a team for sure. Very well said.
And it's okay to not see yourself as a systems person, because it's very natural. And if you say, I've tried to systemize in the past and it didn't work, maybe it's not so much that, it might be the approach that you've taken. So I kind of want to reassure you that everybody here on the call, whether or not they see themselves as a systems person or not, I can assure you, you can own a systems-driven business. It's very possible. And I know under kind of David's guidance, you'll get there. Just it's consistency, and to know that this is one of the most important things you can focus on, because your staff will come and go, but your systems will remain. Dave said it before. He takes those systems to every business that he goes to now. If you figure out a recruitment system, well, in every business that you're ever involved in, you're going to need a recruiting system. So you build up these collection of systems, and they're the asset that sticks with you.
Yeah, so good. Got one more question, David. Again, a little personal, maybe. You mentioned in your book, it should be the business owner's goal to get off the organizational chart, which I agree. Once you systematize your business, for example, for me, we've got multiple crews, we've got an office manager, we've got an operations manager. If I only wanted to work 4 hours in the business a week, I could. Is there ever some animosity with team members as far as how do I structure this? How is it best that the business owner be off the organizational chart, but not be sitting on a beach in Hawaii for 6 months saying, you guys do all the work. So how do you find that rhythm of like, I am the visionary, I physically don't need to be here, I built systems for you guys to run the business, but how do we make sure our managers don't be like, there's that David guy again, he's always away on holidays, we never see him, and you know, so how do you kind of walk that line? That's kind of my last question, and I know it's a big one.
It's probably two parts to that that I probably want to think about. The first one is business owners should have the choice. It's not, some business owners will choose to continue to work in their business because they love what they do and they're scaling, and that's, you know, that they love it. And most business owners don't get the choice. They get into business looking for freedom, and then they have anything but freedom because they're tied to the business. They can't step away because if they step away, everything stops. So the point of Systemology is to get to the point where you can work in it, you can work on it, you can scale how many hours you want to work or you don't want to work. And if you want to take a month off at Christmas and hang out with your family and not think about the business, that's okay. If your best team members want to take a month off and enjoy some time with their family, they can, and you let them because things can continue to operate. So this is, all for everybody's benefit, not just the business owner, and the team needs to get that. So that's part of the answer. The second part of the answer is a lot of what you might be talking about, not always, but there's also some baggage that's going on in the business owner's head around how they think other people are going to think about them and whether or not it's true or not. If you create a great working environment and then they have great working conditions and they get paid on time, they can take breaks when they want, like holidays when they need to, you support them and help them grow, and you build that type of culture, they're in an amazing place if you can build that type of business. And I think they're going to be thinking less about you than you think they're thinking about you. Yeah. Oftentimes for me, like I have and still have to a certain extent some of that baggage, but I know it's my baggage that I need to work through because it's almost like that level of guilt that the business owner feels sometimes when they're not working and the rest of the team is. But remember, you should be rewarded as the business owner for the risk that you took for starting up the company, for the fact that you rolled the dice, that you burnt the candle at both ends at the start to get the business off the ground, that you took all of that risk, and this is an asset that you've built up. Of course, you should be rewarded for that, and maybe you do get paid more than the rest of the team. Maybe you can take more breaks from them, but you have also put a truckload more and taken a truckload more risk than they ever did. So of course your reward should be bigger on the other side. So part of it's kind of just working through that. And as long as that, the risk to reward ratio is fair and you're still looking after teams, there's probably a couple of pieces there. But it's a good question. And I still work through that. The more that I do it though, and over time I've become less, like I've tested these false assumptions. So in Melbourne, SEO, for example, the last business I sold before moving into Systemology, towards the end, Melissa was my operations person, and I was only getting involved about an hour every month for strategic meetings with her. I wasn't even around. Like, yes, it's not like I was lying on a beach. I was starting up Systemology. I had my next business ready to go that I was working on. So I was kind of over there, but I wasn't around in Melbourne SEO, and the team didn't think about that. Like, that's not something that they had concerns about. And then similarly, like now I'm getting to a point, we've got the operations manager in Systemology, Arla, and she handles a lot of the day-to-day stuff, and I'm getting less and less involved. I'm still involved and I love it. And that's, part of the passion. But yeah, this is kind of like just part of that journey. I think a lot of people, your team, are probably thinking less about you than you think they're thinking about you, especially if you're creating a good environment for them.
Yeah, it's an incredible answer, David, to end on. Like, I think as entrepreneurs, we all need some level of therapy. And like, I even think like I struggle with that a lot, to be quite honest. When I look at, I've been an entrepreneur for 13 years now, almost to the day on the 4-year mark, I like shift gears and do a new business. It's so like I did a college degree and then did a business and a business bit. So it's just like, I think you got to recognize if that's how your brain works, geared towards being an entrepreneur. If we're not creating value, we're kind of like, what's my next thing to sink my teeth into? And there's nothing wrong with a lifestyle business. And that's what I really see Revive as right now with my team running it. But now I'm like, man, let's grow the coaching business. Let's do this. Let's do it. And so you got to be cautious, I think, of shiny object syndrome. But I also think like, if we're truly entrepreneurial and visionary, we're probably not going to be working in the same company for 20 years. I don't think we'd be fulfilled. So I guess I'm preaching to myself. I'm going to need to figure out some of this mental baggage I bring with myself. And it's good to hear that it's probably a pretty common struggle with entrepreneurs who do systematize and then wonder, what's next and what's my involvement.
Might be, as we kind of finish up, I want to, obviously, I'll point you to the resource of getting yourself a copy of the Systemology book if you haven't already got it, and there's the audio version. Head over to Amazon to grab that. There's another book you might want to look into, and another guy, and it's only because I recommend it because he's in your space, as in he's a HVAC guy. Michael Gerber came out with a series of E-Myth books that were for different verticals, and there's a book called the E-Myth HVAC Contractor, and the co-author is a guy called Ken Goodrich, and he is in the trades-based stuff, and he has bought, built up, and sold, I believe at the moment it's about 13 different HVAC companies. Now he's built up all of his systems. Every HVAC company that he goes to, he's got his crack team that come in and deploy the systems, quickly build up the value, and then within sort of 12 to 24 months, then he sells the HVAC company. And he's done it 13 times. And I believe the most recent one, he did it for 8 figures. And he does it now very quickly because he's built up the asset and he deploys it in every single business now, which is the HVAC systems. So I think that thinking could be, for some of you, not everybody, that could be a good model for you. Build up your own business. Imagine it like a prototype for rolling out your business consistently. Build it up to the point where maybe you can acquire another business in the same space that's underperforming and you roll your systems out, and then maybe you do sell it. So just a final idea to think about. I don't know, you might have come across him, I think, Dave, but one to invest in.
No, absolutely. That's a great point. Really, really good. Well, David, I know we're slightly over time, guys. Go ahead and throw a 1 or a bunch of 1s in the chat if you love this call. I have a feeling, David, I'm going to try be booking you for a part 2 at some point because absolutely chock full of value. To wrap up, David, can you tell us what would be the best way to learn more? Obviously, your book, I'll put that up in our online community, but anywhere else we could just continue to learn maybe weekly from you, maybe just let us know best way to move forward.
I have found a rhythm. We've created a bit of a system for it where we're putting out regular weekly videos on YouTube. So on my, if you go to systemology.com, scroll all the way to the footer, you'll see there's a link to the YouTube channel, and we basically just make regular little videos. It's oftentimes little snippets from webinars that I've done, or I make a little video, but there's a lot of gold in those videos, and it's just, a way to kind of keep chipping away.
Yeah, I'm sure you've got a system around how to upload videos and when, so can't wait to check it out. And I'll post up all your resources in the group, so we'll be sure to give you some subscribers and love in your post there. So David, from everybody, super appreciate you. We don't do a ton of these in our community, but I'm like, man, we've got to bring David Jenyns on, and this for me was like a bucket list call, man, to bring you on. Read your book, and it's just like such a privilege. So thank you from the bottom of my heart and from everybody here.
My pleasure. I appreciate you, trusting in our work. And if You can do anything to help spread the word. I know this has a big impact for business owners. So if you know a business owner that hasn't read Systemology, share the book. Like, perfect for Christmas time. So yeah, I just appreciate you helping me to get the word out as well, because I know it has a huge impact for business owners.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, David. I'll let you sign off. Everyone, you can hang on with me. We'll go over a couple things. And thank you again, David. Really appreciate it.
Lovely to meet you all. All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye. Wow. How good was that? Hey, guys. Maybe put a 1 in the chat if you've read David's book. I'm curious. I'm on my second time through it, but I'm curious. Put a 1 if you've read it. Maybe some of you haven't, but I think it's got about 200 reviews on Amazon, and I'm quite surprised it doesn't have 10x that, because it's an excellent book. Guys, let's maybe do some discussion around that, and then I'll run over like a couple announcements here. So I was kind of hoping we'd have time for more Q&A from you guys to ask him, but I was kind of watching the clock and time was ripping by. So just go ahead and unmute, and let's hear some questions maybe around that, or maybe even like a key takeaway of like, holy cows, I'm going to go get a GoPro or start my Google Drive or anything. I see someone unmuted. We'll go Jet Wash, and then Wes will go second.
Hey guys, thanks so much for the call. Unbelievable. I'm just so pumped. And I loved all of your questions, Dave. They really brought out the best in the author, David, in Systemology. I've read it 4 times now, or listened to it 4 times. It's and then those takeaways there were unbelievable. So I really like that idea of videoing myself in every single simple step that is already working in my business, and then sending it to my VA in the Philippines to put that into the systems library. And just a really very important point I wanted to raise with everybody here. In the book Systemology, he goes through how to do everything very practically. At the end, he has a chapter, I think it's chapter 11, and it's why should you do the systems. It's not just to free up your time, but he talks about a big picture takeaway, which is if you can improve 5 or 6 aspects of your business, sales, marketing, all these little aspects of the business, if you can improve them by 10% in each category, reducing expenses, you will almost double your turnover. The compound effect is huge. So systemizing the business is really important, but just having tiny improvements in every aspect of your business can actually double the turnover without doubling your effort.
It's so good, David. Like, it's not, I was telling Micah yesterday, small hinges swing big doors. And a lot of times we got to figure out what those small hinges are in our business, because we're all running business with our blinders up, right? And me and Coach Jackson and Coach Chemo and a session like this coming into your business, it's like, once you can identify what you need to work on, a lot of you are hardworking enough. You went out and started your business. You're a lot more hardworking than the average person. We just got to push you to work hard on the right stuff. So I liked how simple the session was, and also how simple of a read the book is. Like, I find myself driving and listening to it and like literally pulling over and just typing in my iPhone notes, like, oh yeah, a system around that was clunky, or someone mentioned that last week. So really good, David. Like, you guys should have your mindset so large right now. To double your business, you probably only need to change like 5 or 6 things. Like, honestly, I think even just the level of getting your team of technicians to do marketing on the job site, I think that's booked us well over 100K of revenue this year for our company. And it's like, we're just getting it going, and we don't even have painting going yet with like a sizable job size. So yeah, lots of little things, David. Small hinges swing big doors. I love it. And David, thanks to you, man, for setting that up. You booked, I paid for David to come on, man, but you booked him. So I appreciate that. Let's go to Wes, and then AJ will get you on deck. Oh, I think you're unmuted, Wes, but I can't hear you. Might be your headset. I'll
There we
let
go.
you know. There we go. Take it
Yeah,
away.
it was my headset. David just said it exactly how I was going to say it, and 10 times better. The capturing everything to, putting it to a VA to then having them just like slowly take things off your plate is going to be eye opener for sure. I cannot wait to get that audiobook. So
Yeah. It's so good, man. And you're in the earlier start, Wes, but it's like, if you look at your time, could you get a VA for 15 or 20 bucks an hour working for 5 to 10 to 15 hours a week, helping you with this stuff? Like, I'd love to see you come through Foundations and have your own Google Drive set up for your cleaning company. And then it just becomes improving on the systems that are made. So incredible.
yeah, that's the
And
goal for sure.
I'll be honest, guys, I never gave it enough thought to think business owners maybe aren't naturally system driven, because I naturally kind of love systems. And so the fact you could go who not how, enroll an assistant, and guys, if you look at even paying $1,000 or $2,000 to a VA, but you get a systematized company and buy your time back, you're going to have a better life and you're going to actually make your company worth something. So it's kind of a no-brainer. That's awesome, Wes. Thanks for sharing. AJ, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good gems in this for sure. But I think the one that I'm going to take away the most is when he said you shouldn't be solving the same problem over and over again. That was a big one because we've got a fair amount of systems in place to where we're not necessarily overwhelmed with problems, but there's definitely a couple of things that we've solved multiple times in a week, and that's just a great place for kind of Leslie and I to start looking at right now, like what are we solving over and over again. It kind of just gives me a good push in the right direction. And then the other one was every time you make a system, it'll be the worst it's going to be, because I remember even when I was doing that training library with the GoPro, as corny as that was, the thought of trying to make it right stopped me from doing it for a while, instead of just doing it. And then I did it, and it's tacky, but it's good enough to get things done, so anyways, those are my two big takeaways. And I think that Leslie and I are going to look at some problems that we're solving more than once a week and try to get some systems for them.
I love it, man. I can't tell you enough. I just put it in the chat, like done is better than perfect. And it's like, the only thing more insane, man, than a rinky dink video is not making a system around something you've been doing for months or years. So like, most contractors have their heads so far up their ass, they don't know anything about systems. You guys are on this session, even making one system this week, you're going to be crushing your competitors. So, and AJ, good on you, man, bringing Leslie on the call, guys. Like, when you get up in the growth program with me and Jackson, you get to bring on your production manager, your office manager. Like, part of that level is growing your team at that point. So keep that in mind. Coach Kimo, go ahead. Takeaways.
Yeah, so I haven't read the book yet. I just actually ordered it while we're talking. But one of my biggest takeaways was when he said applying the 80-20 rule to your systems. And that was something that I had to really go back and look at on my systems, because I found myself really double, triple writing it for different things. And then come to find out it was actually the same system that was working throughout the whole time. So that 80-20 rule really hit me, because that's what I had to do, and it worked out way better for me. It cleaned up my systems rather than having 1,000 of the same stuff.
Yeah. And I think, Kimo, you're on a bit of the higher end of, like, you've already went through this with Alex, with Itaika. And I think, like, once you read through the book and rewatch this session, you're going to come up with a whole few pages of notes of, like, man, we can either build a brand new system or we can refine the one we had. And this guy's like really entrepreneurial guy, successful business owner. And I love when he's like, you're still never done it. And you even come through this program, you're still not going to be done, but your mindset has changed. And that's why, guys, entrepreneurs can start 100 companies in their lifetime, because they're just like, look at Ken Goodrich. I think it's even more companies than David said. Like, he's now has his team and he can go in and turn $1 million into 10 million in like 12 months. And then we do it again. So it's just like, it becomes this big game of Monopoly. Quite honestly, it's addicting because you get better at it. And that's why I put in the chat maybe half hour ago, system building can 100% be learned. It's just like going to the gym. The first 6 weeks suck. You get no muscles. And Craig posted in our chat today, the Alex Hormozy podcast, and he actually talked about what we talked about a month ago, the inflection point where people quit and they're like, building systems is hard. It didn't work for me. I'm going to screw off and not do it. If you push through that, that's when the thing starts to compound. So really good insights, Chemo. That it's exciting because you've got a team. You can now plug systems into them and the thing will just start to multiply.
Yeah, and I actually took my notes here too. Order book, read book, rewatch video. So I'll be rewatching this again and be doing all that over and over and just repeating it. But thank you.
So good. Yeah, absolutely, Chemo. Good for you. Anyone else want to jump in, guys? Just unmute. Would love to hear a couple more takeaways before we wrap up here. Such a good session. Sounds like everybody's dry. Yeah, Wes, go ahead.
Before coming into this this course, like when I didn't really know anything about systems, so I thought there was like hundreds and hundreds, which there are. But when he said there's really only 10 or 15 systems that really like drive the business, it was kind of relieving to the point where, okay, it's not going to like be hundreds of thousands of systems to drive it. It's those extra ones that are going to refine it, which is going to be, I mean, that was awesome to hear.
So good, man. And that's why we restructured Foundations into being 12 weeks. Cause we're like, what are the main things that we need to do? And trust me, I love our systems library and it's got hundreds of systems, but it's overwhelming to try ram through someone's throat in 3 months. It took me 3 years, right? So if you guys even do it in a year, you're kicking my ass by 2 years. So it's like, I think just going one thing at a time. And I love the point he made. What's working in your business, make a system around that, because you will find as a business owner, you invest your time in what's working and you usually tend to be pretty good at that. For me, I am not good on the job site. My team doesn't want me there. That's why I was only on the truck in Revive for like 8 weeks, because I wanted to learn how to do it, but I wasn't good. Where I was really good on Jobber, believe it or not, scheduling, color coding, organizing. I love that. And I sat in that role for a year too long in my company. So I think like be cautious of over investing your time in low deliverable tasks that are working, but they actually just need to get you out of them. And the only way to get out of that jail is to build a system around it. And those of you doing office processes, 250K in business, still scheduling tonight after this call, download a program called Loom, Loom. I probably have made over 400 Loom videos. I kid you not. My little circle on, maybe I've sent you one, right? I do a walkthrough to show my screen. That's a system for the office. So I think take your iPhone out in the field this week, maybe get a GoPro. We got a drone a couple months ago with Revive for marketing. That's your field stuff. In office, you need a computer and a Loom video. And some of you are still pen to paper, and that's okay too. So kind of enroll some basic tools to make this easy for you. And then like Fiverr and Upwork for VAs would be a great place to start for like any sort of video editing, and go and upgrade your Google Drive. I think we pay like $12 a month for 100 gigs of space. So we have our own system library for Revive. So I'm kind of rambling here, but those are some like basic steps where we can get started. And Wes, go ahead, Kyle.
Just saying, those are great, super practical. Get an iPhone or a camera in the field, use Loom in the office, and then start building your Google library. Yeah. I mean, it kind of creates a framework and a vision. Like, put those things together. Great.
So good, man. And guys, I was going to tell David, but someone once told me, what does system stand for, right? Save yourself time, energy, and money. So sometimes if you're playing around on your computer, making a system, ask yourself, will this save me my time, my energy, my money? If we're 3 for 3 on that, then let's proceed. And that's why I made the silly example. You're not going to make a system around like one random crazy thing that is just a one-off. You want to find things that are repeatable in your business. So really, really good stuff. Anyone else want to jump in, guys, before we wrap up here?
I'll say one more thing.
Yeah.
So when I was starting off, I kept putting things off. When I started in this program, I kept putting little things here and there, realizing, okay, I can do this. I need to do this, but I wasn't doing it. Then I heard a saying from another guy, it's fog. I was in a fog, and that's fear of growth. And that fear of growth was stopping me from doing my systems because I feel like I was so overwhelmed with how much needed to be done until I realized there really wasn't that much. So it was just my fear and then getting over that. So a lot of you guys that are starting in this program or starting now, like Wes, you don't have to look at everything and go, man, this is going to be so much, and just kind of put it off because you're worried about jumping in and getting started on it.
Yeah.
Like David said, just doing it, getting it done is better than not doing it at all.
Yeah. So well said, Chemo. That's awesome. And guys, like, because if you truly believe that time is your ultimate resource, like, to invest a couple years in this business and go bananas on structuring it and designing it properly, that's going to be the path to walk on, rather than go bananas and wash homes and do 100 grand in revenue per year, but you have no systems and no one would ever be interested in the business. So I see system building, for me, why I went so crazy with it was, one, I want to have this be a lifestyle business. So is selfishly why I did it. And two, when the day comes, if I ever wanted to sell the company, I've got the whole thing, and it's still building and growing, but the whole thing is largely systematized, that I could go away for a month and have it still operate. So kind of do it for yourself and your family, like, give yourself better lifestyle while you ride it along. And if the day ever comes, you'll want to do an exit, well, there you go. You'll be set up for that. I saw one more hand, but I think Kyle jumped off the call. Want to show you guys just two last things. Number one, I circulated out in general, and I'll drop it again in the recording here. I really want to quantify for you guys how your businesses are growing, both by way of revenue, profit, and how much time, where your time's going. And so I've made a 6-question survey. Some of you have filled it out. Thank you very much. But just spend literally 3 minutes if you can for me, produce that survey. And those of you in Foundations, Jackson posted it in your Slack group. And then the last thing, just to show you, I'll show you on screen share. Kind of weird, I didn't do much screen shares today, but here we go with one. We're rolling out here, guys, a referral program, and I'll post this as well. Whoa, let's maybe zoom in. That's not working. How do I make this big? It's not working, but you get the idea. What we're doing, guys, anyone that you can refer into our coaching program, I'll pay you $1,000 US cash bonus. And so the reason for that is we don't actually have an official referral program. And so I'm kicking this off. And so all you got to do is introduce me in an email chain. So you've got my email, connect me with a friend, or if it's on social media, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, just connect me in a group chat. When your friend joins HSBC, you'll get $1,000 payout, not when they graduate, like literally when they join. So just a heads up there. The program's growing. We're getting great people in, and similar to your business, I've got a referral program at Revive, but we don't yet have one at HSBC. So keep this in mind. Connect me in a group chat or on email, and we'll be able to link up some extra money coming your way. So this is kind of a cool way you could help offset your coaching, to be honest. Bring in a friend or two into the program. Probably don't enroll the guy who's 2 miles down the street from you, but I'm talking like your buddies on Facebook who has a pool cleaning company or a pressure washing company or whatever. So just keep that in mind through your conversations as well in the coming months. Last note, guys, Summit is going full steam ahead. I literally just booked our videographer. Is going to be awesome. I've got a photographer coming, and the rooms are starting to get booked up, which is awesome. I'm bringing some members of Revive there, my 2 managers, and some of you are starting to get your trips booked. So if you want access to the info for that, hit me up on Slack. I'll add you into our HSBC Summit file. It's going to be a 3-day event. We're doing guest speakers all morning. The afternoon are going to be small group business planning. And the coaches are going to be roaming group to group. We're going to be planning out your entire next year. And then we're going to have the evenings to hang out, have some dinner, have some drinks. And Saturday, we're going to do training in the morning and then have the afternoon and go do something fun in Vancouver, TBA, but we'll find something fun to do as a group. So definitely want to get it booked, guys. Going to be huge value. It's free to attend, literally cover your room. That's 30% off. And also cover your plane ticket and bring some money for food, and you'll be good to go. But it's other than that, you're literally getting it at your own cost just to get there. So, well, guys, let's wrap up. Killer call today. I'll get the show notes up. Reach out to me, reach out to Jackson, Chemo, if you guys need anything. And I'm looking forward to a lot of you on your call actually with Jackson in like an hour here. So we'll wrap up, but we'll see you guys next week. And please fill out that survey when you find the time. And guys, thanks for coming to today's session. I'll hit up David. We'll see if we can do a part 2. And let's get busy systematizing. If you hit any roadblocks, that's why we're here to help you. So take care, guys. Incredible day. Have a great Friday and a great weekend. And we'll be chatting soon. See you later.